Thank you everyone for joining us. Just to start off, obviously, we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where we gather, as we do so electronically. And Corf pays respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging, and acknowledges the important roles, and there are multiple roles that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples play right across the outdoor sector, across Queensland, but across Australia, and welcome any First Nations people who may be joining us today. And yeah, so that's just an important part of what we like to do to start these sessions. And we also acknowledge the support provided to Corf and the outdoor sector by the Queensland government as well. Welcome to a session of Coffee and Conversation. My name is Dom Courtney. I'm the Executive Officer of Corf, the Queensland Outdoor Recreation Federation. Also joining us, Mark Squires, Corf's Partnerships Manager. I think Hubertine Witches, our Office Manager, and also Angela Wright, our Nature Play Queensland Program Manager, are with us. So we welcome members of the Corf board and also life members of our organisation, and also welcome all members of Corf and any others who are joining us, including any reps from interstate organisations. So welcome. As I said, the recordings of these sessions are publicly available on our website and YouTube. And also, just a quick reminder, the e-news subscriptions, feel free to let other people know about those e-news. We want to see the growth of those e-news so that more people get the news that we think they need. So Mark puts a lot of effort into the e-news to make sure it's relevant to as many people as possible. And we like to continue to spread the word there. So a bit of an agenda today. There's a fair bit on there. Some of these things are the same things we've discussed other weeks, reminders, etc. We do have Dot Foley from the Uni of Canberra joining us to speak about her research project in a little while, and then we'll get stuck into a fair bit on the COVID safe business / organisation framework and the industry COVID safe plans, and also COVID safe events. So I want to have a bit of a talk about that towards the end of the session. So if there's anything else, please feel free to pop it in the chat. It's an important feature of as we go. So as we go along, have a look at the chat and go along. So Mark, am I not sharing my screen properly?
Well, I'm not seeing it. I'm not sure whether anybody else is. No, Dot's shaking her head, so guessing not.
Technical failure. Sorry about that. Let me try again. Sorry. Oh, I've been charging long as if I was showing you stuff. Is that better?
That's perfect.
All right. Wow. We'll go back. I did show this the flags of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, and then you only missed that one. So basically, there's the agenda. And as I said, Dot will be speaking in a little while. I just want to go through a couple of other things as well. Just a reminder, really. David's hashtag not ready for week 15. I don't seem to be very ready today, David. Sorry about that. So just an opportunity, this one's really a reminder. TAFE Queensland has some really good training on their website. It's about individuals, but also supporting smaller, medium and large businesses. So pretty much something for everyone. For job seekers or workers impacted by COVID-19, they've got free online skill sets available there. So it's definitely worth having a look at. Just check the eligibility on that. I've been told some people have found they've got in there and then found they weren't eligible. So just check your eligibility before you set aside time to get stuck into it. And the other one, again, for eligible businesses, there's financial resilience webinars on there on the TAFE website, so check that out. They're worth a look. I'd highly recommend them. And the other one is Active Queenslanders Industry Alliance. They've launched some industry-specific training for recreation, fitness and sport organisations for return to work. And that's about alignment with the industry COVID safe plans. So they're definitely worth doing. They're referred to, that training from AQIA is referred to in the industry plans as one of the places that you can go to get that training. So I'd recommend having a look at that one too. Another reminder, the Queensland Government's Small Business COVID-19 Adaptation Grant Program, which was launched last week, it's still open. There's $50 million allocated to regional Queensland businesses and $50 million to Southeast Queensland in this round of that grant. And it's between $2,000 and $10,000 per eligible small or micro business. So the information's all on that website. I checked it this morning. They're still calling for more applications. Last time they did this, the thing was closed in days because it was oversubscribed, particularly in Southeast Queensland. I don't think they ever got all of the grants out in regional Queensland. I think that's, again, a big push. We talked about that last week. And Dave Payne from Paramount last week did speak about they were successful in getting some funding, which he found to be really handy. So it's good to hear stories like that of people who have got that funding and are putting it to good use. Dave said he engaged a marketing professional to generate more income for their business, which is a great way of using that that grant funding. So I highly recommend going to those websites and having a look at that one. Dave Maskell, I think you're on the line. I'm not sure if Pete is. I haven't seen the list of participants. I just wanted to give the Inside the Outhouse a bit of a plug again for next Monday. And I haven't updated my slide because it should have been last Monday, starring Dot Foley from University of Canberra. But sorry about that. I missed that slide again. Not ready for week 15.
That's all right, Dom. We're actually having a lot of demonstrations and presenting, and I'll be presenting some chats. Next week we're going to have a week's break. One of our teams actually traveling across the country.
So you've got a lot of crackle going on.
Really bad.
That's better.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. Okay. We're going to break next week, but we're back on the 20th. And we have...
You're keeping us in suspense. You broke up as you said, and we have, Dave. If you...
Not going to work tonight.
It's all right. Maybe you can tell us next week. So it's a break next week from Inside the Outhouse, but the following week we'll be back with something wonderful that Dave can tell us about maybe next week in this session. Or check the website, the Facebook page, or just email them and register and you'll get the info as it's available. So, gee, it's going to be one of those days, I think. Dot, I'm a bit scared for you, but we'll hand over to you next. Ropes and COVID-19 on the 20th of July. That's been a topic that's been discussed a couple of times. So that'll be good, Dave. So, yeah, we'll look forward to that. Thanks, mate. I'll just hand over to Dot now. So I'll somehow stop sharing my screen. And Dot, if you want to take over, I've got one slide there, which I reckon you'll probably duplicate a little bit. But yeah, once we get...
We'll get that image out there as much as we can. Plaster the walls.
I'll just introduce Dot quickly. Dot's currently at the University of Canberra, and she's running a project regarding the future of the outdoor industry in Australia, the entire outdoor industry, not just outdoor ed. And I think I have to apologise, Dot. Last week in our session, I did use just outdoor ed because that's what we'd been talking about a few weeks ago.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, so Dot's going to speak. Dot's also a former outdoor edder, which is probably why I had that in my head. But yeah, I'll just hand over to Dot. You want to share your screen and away we go.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you so much, Dom. And yeah, thanks for having me as a guest up in Queensland. I've worked one or two companies up in Queensland briefly, so it's nice to sort of revisit, even if only at distance. But yeah, just as obviously not normally a Queenslander and haven't joined up in one of your coffee and conversations before, so just get a bit of a introduction to the people that are joining in with us today. Just a couple of words, if you can just chuck into group chat, what about your involvement in the outdoor industry really gets you excited, really gets you pumped? Just a couple of words in the chat will be lovely. Thanks for that, David. David's just posted up the presentation I did on Inside the Outhouse as well, which I was going to link to, so that's great. Thank you. Yep, so improves people, chance to help people choose a more powerful way of being. Learning outside the classroom. Yeah, so that sort of learning improvement, getting involved with people, definitely all common to how we get people involved in the outdoors. So I'll just share my screen. Oops. There we go, come on. Right. So in terms of what we're looking at with the survey, essentially, obviously everyone's had some very significant impacts with COVID-19 internationally, and this is some results that have been found overseas, impacts on organisations, both current and looking into the future if restrictions continue, impacts on outdoor professionals in terms of what it is happening right now, but also then from the USA, there's been surveys looking at what people are expecting to happen into the future and when they feel like they might be able to get back into the outdoors. And obviously in Australia, we also had the bushfires before this, so not so much applicable to that international picture, but the double whammy for us is, and for Queensland, as well as for New South Wales, as well as for, you know, Victoria and some of the other states in Australia, we've been hit really hard. And I think that sort of double whammy impact is going to make a really big difference, as everyone is obviously going to be really aware working in the outdoor industry. But also I think one of the really interesting things and one of the kind of cool things that's come out of this is the fact that while there's been some nasty impacts, there's also been some really positive outcomes and really positive realization among the public of it's actually really great to get into the outdoors, and it has benefits to your well-being, and it has benefits in terms of supporting the small communities around, if you know, getting out for outdoor tourism and all that sort of stuff. So I think while there's a lot of quite disheartening and quite scary stuff going on at the moment, there is also a greater recognition of there are benefits to being in the outdoors, and we're hoping that maybe we can start to tap into that, as I'm sure that everyone working in the industry is going to be hoping for as well. So in terms of the survey that we're doing, Future of the Outdoor Industry in Australia survey, so like Dom said, trying to get across the whole industry, so recreation, education, therapy, tourism, all of those things. If you're involved in the outdoor industry, it'd be really great to hear from you in any of those areas, as well as anything else that you sort of see as involved in the industry that's not covered in those sectors. And looking at the impacts of and recovery and looking towards the future. So bushfires, as we highlighted, that's been a really significant impact. Queensland was obviously hit really hard in some areas, and we also recognise not everyone was. So we want to get a bit of an idea of, were you hit hard? Did this really impact you? Maybe it didn't, and we want to hear that as well. COVID, obviously that's an ongoing concern as well, particularly as things are heating up in Victoria. And I know that Queensland is being quite firm with their borders, and hopefully that'll have a really protective impact as we go forward. But what have been the impacts for your business or your organisation or your employment in the industry of COVID? What's that looking like for you? And what does recovery look like for you for that as well? And then also climate change and ongoing concern. What's that going to mean for the future? What does that mean for the current impacts and recovery of the outdoor industry? And in terms of looking at the future, we're not just looking at resilience and how do we adapt to these current things, but also as society moves more technologically inclined, as people spend more and more time inside, what's going to happen for the future of the outdoor industry? How do we adapt to those expectations and the way people interact with their environment, and make sure that the outdoor industry can remain current and can keep people engaged as we move into the future in general? We have got streams for organisations, for employees, and for interested other parties. So for organisations, what we're really looking at is if you are someone who's relatively senior in your organisational business, and that does include volunteer organisations as well, we really like to you to jump on and fill out that section. We do need someone relatively senior in the organisation, because there are questions about percentage of hours that you've had of employees that have lost, percentage of turnover that you've lost. So we do need someone who sort of understands those aspects for your organisational business. Employees, what has been the impact on your employment? What has been the impact on your livelihood, on your well-being, on the way you live your life in general of these things? And also interested other parties. Essentially, if you don't fit into those other categories, what we're really looking for is getting a bit of a broader spectrum, someone who's maybe stepped back a little bit. They're a previously employee, or there's someone who's involved in terms of they like bushwalking, but they don't gain their employment from the outdoor industry. It'd be really great to hear your perspective as well. What do you think about these impacts, and what do you think about what's going to be the future for the outdoor industry as well? So like I said, what is happening for you? What is happening for your outdoor organisation? And what do you see for the future of the outdoor industry in Australia? I really just want to acknowledge as well, we've had really great input from QORF and from a number of the other industry peak bodies and some of the stakeholders as well. In terms of developing the questions that we've got in there, it's been done in collaboration with these guys that I've got the details at the bottom. And that's been really helpful to try and make sure that it's going to be beneficial information that they can have from you guys to help you recover and help you move forwards. So that's partly how our questions have been developed. We've also developed from previous surveys to give us a little bit of comparability, hopefully, and also making sure that the questions we've got there trying not to identify anyone in particular. So we've made sure that the questions aren't asking for your name or for your organisation's name. Also not asking for like dollar amounts of turnover or amount of employees as a figure, because we're aware that it's a very small industry within Australia, and we don't want people to feel uncomfortable about responding to the questions we've got there. In terms of what happens to the data at the end of all of this, so the survey is open from the start of July, so the 1st to the 31st, so it's about another 3 weeks. Past that point, I'm going to be screening that data just to make sure that nothing has been included inadvertently that is going to identify any organisations or any individuals, and that'll all be stripped out if there is by accident. That information, the clean data will then be provided to all of these bodies down the bottom for them to have an initial look at, see what they can find out, see if there's anything in particular they'd like to have explored. And then we're going to have a couple of different summaries of the results. So first up, one developed in collaboration with QORF and the other bodies here, that's going to be looking at data that's beneficial for them to help them help you recover and move forwards. And then there's also going to be an in-depth report that I'm going to be looking at in terms of what are the effects on outdoor education employees. As Dom said, I'm a previous outdoor editor. And we all know that the employees in the outdoor industry, but also the industry in general, are the lifeblood and often have quite a quick turnover, particularly in the outdoor industry, just in general, like normal sort of circumstances. So we're looking at what's the impact on their well-being, what's the impact on their livelihood, and how is that sort of interacting maybe with what they see as their future in the industry, and then hopefully we can figure out a way to help support them and make sure that the industry is a little bit more stable and secure as we move forward. So what we really appreciate from all of you, if you're involved in any of those aspects, so if you're an organisation, if you're an employee, if you're someone who likes to go hiking, or you've got a mate next door who just goes on the occasional weekend hike, be really great if you can get involved, if you can get the people you know involved in jumping onto the survey. And filling that out, and also just really sharing it around. At the moment, we had really great initial take up from particular aspects of the sector, but a little bit less from organisations and from the broader sector, and it'd be really great to hear what's going on, so we can have basically the greater in-depth we have across the whole sector, the more richness of data we can feed back to QORF and all the other bodies, and then the more they're going to be able to tailor their responses to what you guys are really saying, this is what we need. And that's really what we're looking for. So I'll pop the link into the chat. There's also, like David said, there's also, it's also on Facebook as well. If you're able to jump onto any of that, share it around, jump on, participate, that'd be really appreciated. And hopefully we can help look at what's going to be happening in the future.
Terrific, thanks Dot. And I also want to say, it's been really refreshing the way Dot and also James from University of Canberra have been engaging with the industry in relation to the survey, and the openness of, yeah, happy to change some things, and even the way the survey was presented to make it, you know, more accessible for everyone right across the sector. And looking forward to that information too, and seeing what we can do with it, because we'll be able to use that in our advocacy role, but also partly in understanding what's going on out there and adjusting some of the things we might deliver, but also speaking to government or other bodies about what the sector needs. So it's a really good opportunity to be involved. So I encourage everyone to not only fill it out, but also share it with everyone else. I might have to check the recording later, Dot. I don't know if I called you a former outdoor editor, because I don't think there's any such thing. I think once you're an outdoor editor, you're an outdoor editor for life. So
that's pretty true. I definitely dress like one. I've still got my Nalgene bottle. Like, it doesn't change.
No, yeah, cool. Thank you very much, Dot. And yeah, Mark's shared in the chat the link there.
Awesome,
and,
thank you.
Yeah, we've also got it on our website, and yeah, we'll hope it all goes well. So it's open until the end of July. Yeah,
open until the end of July is the current sort of plan. The concern, I think, is obviously things are changing so quickly. While we're open to maybe looking at extending it a bit depending on the response, the more we extend it, the more data is going to be sort of messed up by, it was relaxed now, and like the COVID restrictions were relaxed now, and now they've been tightened up again. So how people are responding and what's happening, we're not going to get a really solid picture. It's going to be muddied essentially by variation that is happening as everything changes. So that's currently what we're looking at. I should also mention the summary reports that I mentioned there will be publicly available. So we'll be distributing them to QORF and the other bodies. And there's also a space at the end of the survey, if you do jump on and fill it out, to chuck your email in there if you're keen on getting a summary. If you don't want to do it, or you've done it and quit out already without realizing it's there, I'll chuck my email in chat and just shoot me an email, and I can send it to you via email as well.
Lovely. Thanks, Dot.
No worries. Thanks so much for having me.
Cool. No worries at all. Just also, while you were speaking, you might be surprised, but there was a bit of chat going on in the chat feature. Yeah, so if anyone has any queries too for Dot, I've just got her email there. I hope you guys can see my screen again now, if I've managed to do it properly. Mark? Yes, cool. Whew. But also, Vanath Sharma just put a comment on there about her study too, and I just thought if Vanath, if you'd like to speak to that, just had you join CORF as a member this week, so welcome to as a member of CORF. But yeah, just if you'd like a couple of minutes to speak about your study, that'd be great.
Okay, thanks, Dom. Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay, that's nice. I am Vinate Sharma. I have been involved in the Australian outdoors, but not as an industry person or as an employee. I have done most of the outdoor stuff as for personal and family reasons. However, I was an active outdoors and outdoor education person back in India before I moved over to Australia 2 decades ago. And also, I'm a trained qualified forest schools person from England. And I brought it back to Australia, the ideas, after I returned to Australia a couple of years ago, thinking that I was going to start forest schools, my own business here. But then I ran into insurance problems. So that is pending. So in a way, yes, I am an outdoor person, outdoor educator and forest schools person. In another way, I'm not registered or licensed to practice yet. So that's one story. The other story is my current study for MSW, Masters in Social Work degree. And I only finished my first semester. And towards the end of the first semester, I came across this green social work and animal social work. And I'm going on my placement starting on Monday, literally in 2 days, 3 days time. And I have chosen green social work as my focused area. As I started exploring green social work a bit more in depth, I came across a number of individuals who are social workers practicing nature-assisted, nature-based therapy using, human nature, relationship, connection, and trauma-based practice, a number of approaches, person in environment approach, and things like that. So these are all social workers as well as outdoor industry professionals. So that caught my interest. And of course, I wanted to become CORF member when Nature Play started in 2014, when I was still here in England, in Brisbane. And my husband was in a way involved in Nature Play in 2014. So we both wanted to join and become active in Nature Play at that time, but then we went over to England to, live and do stuff there. So indirectly, I'm outdoor education person. Directly now, I am beginning to explore green social work for nature-assisted therapy to work with, humans, individuals, and trauma, and a number of stuff I'm still exploring.
Terrific.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. I'm sorry I got your name wrong before, but yeah, and that's great to hear. I mean, CORF is all about all aspects of everyone who uses outdoor activities for whatever reason. So whether it's just gumbies like me going for a bushwalk, or people who are using it for wonderful purposes, whether it's education or therapy or tourism opportunities, that's what CORF's all about. So yeah, welcome, and yeah, look forward to speaking to you more about your studies, and good luck with your placement next week. I hope it goes well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No worries. Yeah, and we might actually be able to link you up with our Nature Play team too, because Nature Play is part of CORF. So that might be an opportunity too, if you'd like to have some discussions with what we're doing in the Nature Play space too. So if you'd like us to, we'll pass your details on to the Nature Play team.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks.
No worries at all. Yeah. Speaking of really good things that people are doing in the outdoors, I'm hoping you can see my slide again there. I've just got a slide about the Outdoors Queensland Awards. So they're going ahead in 2020. There's a lot of things not going ahead this year for various reasons, but the Outdoors Queensland Awards are going ahead. We're not sure about how we're going to hold the dinner yet, but we're exploring options. But it's all about acknowledging great things being done. Nominations are open right now. There's 8 different categories, which I've got up on the screen, which are probably a little bit hard to read because, again, not ready week 15, as David said earlier. But the nominations close the 21st of August, so really encourage you to get in, nominate people or organisations for the different categories, and you can also nominate yourself or others. So it's quite open to that system. Mark's just shared the link in the chat feature, so please have a look at that. Probably after the session, but you can, yeah, that's really, there's so many good things happening out there. I think when in a year like this, where there's been a lot of doom and gloom and sadness and difficulty, I think it's a really good opportunity to actually encourage people to nominate, but also to celebrate the really good things that are going on out there. So I just wanted to give ourselves a little plug today for some of the stuff that we're doing with the Outdoors Queensland Awards, which will be announced in some way at the end of October. So Friday the 30th of October, I think it is, Mark. I haven't got my calendar in front of me. I guessed right, cool. So Friday the 30th of October, the big announcement will be. The next day, so that'll be the big news that day, and the following day is actually the Queensland election. So there'll be two big news stories that week, but the Outdoors Queensland Awards is obviously the bigger one and more important. Anyway, moving right along, back to the world of COVIDs. We talked about the COVID Safe Business Framework last week, and the government has updated this to line up with the new stage 3 situation for Queensland, and it's very much worth having a look at this document. That there's the COVID Safe Business Framework. They talk about these different compliance categories. We've got our industry plans approved, so that's really important to know that. Some organisations might still be working under a COVID Safe checklist, but there's a big push on from the government to move towards, if there's an industry plan for our industry, which we have two, there's a big push from the Queensland government that people adopt those plans because they're approved by the Chief Health Officer. The second part is this compliance overview, which is actually really good that they've shared that now. There's information about that previously, but they've put it all in one place. So it's all about what are the compliance, what's involved in compliance with those different mechanisms in there. So as it says there, it says one plan per industry. We've got a one plan per segment of our industry, I suppose, because we've got the outdoor recreation activity provider plan and the outdoor education provider plan. So that's an important one as well. It's all one document. I just wanted to show both parts of it here. As we go along, if anyone has any questions, please sing out or pop something in the chat too. So the outdoor plans have been approved by the Queensland's Chief Health Officer, those two plans. Really importantly, and I probably haven't pushed this or publicised this enough, if you've got any queries, particularly you're happy to give me a yell or send me an email, but also it's really worthwhile sending them through to the Sport and Rec COVID-19, so it's SR_COVID-19, etc. It's on the screen there. The reason for that is they're trying to develop some frequently asked questions, and they need to have questions asked of them to make those things frequent. So at the moment, some of the other industries have got some really good FAQ documents. We don't at the minute, and it's partly because they're not actually getting the questions from us, and I think it's partly because you guys are asking me, and I'm not remembering to pass them all on to Sport and Rec or that sort of thing. So even if you send them an email, there's no dramas. If you're happy to, if you want to copy it to Sport and Rec, I think that's a good option. So we need them to develop some of those questions, because you'd be amazed how often I get the same question from several different people, and that also makes me think, oh, I probably should have talked about that last week. But yeah, it's a really good thing to use that email address if you do have particular queries, even if it's about a technical part of the industry safe plan, one of the plans. That's the sort of stuff they want to know about, because if there's things you're not understanding, there's a good chance someone else will not understand it as well. And Mark's just shared that email address too in the chat. Thanks, Mike. The statement of compliance, again, you can print that out from the website and sign it to say that that your organisation's complying with an industry safe plan, and display it at your venue or where you're operating. So that's an important piece as well. So yeah, there's nothing detailed on there. It's just saying that as an organisation we are complying. So that's what that's about. So I've just put both of their industry plans on there. They've both been approved. They were both updated and put up on the website last week. And as my red text says, they're both being updated again. This bit of tinkering, it's actually a good thing. So the changes that were announced, so the updates last week, which we talked about last week in this session, were all about the changes to the resumption for stage 3, which commenced at midday last week. The plans were published at about 12:30 last week, the updated versions. There's pretty minor changes this week, which are the Chief Health Officer has, and this is going across all industry plans, the Chief Health Officer has put out an update, an amendment for the contact tracing and tracking, which is that all operators need to record both time of entry and time of exit for participants. So that's going to be included in the plan. We actually already had that in the activity providers plan. There was a template register and it already had time in and time out on that plan anyway. It's just the Chief Health Officer is now saying that's what they're asking people to do for the whole time. There's some places where it's going to be difficult, like the sports are sort of pushing back a little because they say if you've got spectators coming in, it's a little bit hard to get every single one of them to actually come and sign out on the way out. They may relax it a bit to say, have time in, sign in for that, and then put your estimated time that you're going to leave. So might be a bit of a relaxation on that one, but I don't think it's going to be a major drama for most of our people. I imagine for particularly outdoor edders, I'd love to hear if anyone has any comments. If you're running an outdoor ed centre, you pretty much know the time that every person has departed from your centre anyway, so you could pretty easily fill that in very accurately. I don't think it's going to be a big drama, but I just wanted to flag that as one of the changes that's coming in. I don't know if those new plans have been updated on the website. They hadn't been this morning, but Mark just shook his head. So the other couple of amendments, one of them is literally that, again, this one came mostly from the sport and gym space. The Chief Health Officer has agreed that the change rooms can be included as the same rules as what applies on the field of play. So the 4 square metres isn't going to apply to change rooms, which is really interesting, I think. But obviously it's an acknowledgement that a lot of sports venues have very small change rooms, and I'm guessing they don't want people sitting out in the rain after their game or something. They don't want them getting the flu. So maybe they've just decided that if they've been running around out in the field together, they can gather in a change room together without having the 4 square metres. So I'm not really 100% on that one, but that's going to be in our plan as well, just so it's consistent. Again, I don't think it has a big impact on us. If anyone thinks it does, please let me know. But it's actually a relaxation anyway, so I don't think it's a big deal. And the other one is extra information regarding events in the outdoor rec activity providers plan. So that's an important piece, which there has been some confusion about events. So we'll get to the COVID safe event stuff in a minute. I just wanted to pause and just see if anyone has any questions about the industry plans or about implementation, and open it up for anyone who wants to ask any questions. Come on. There's never been a time when no one has had a question about an industry plan for the last few weeks.
So we can access the the updated plan off your site?
There's a link from our site, Dave, to the government website. But this is one thing I would say to you where the very important IT advice coming from me, which you don't get every day, it's you need to clear the cache on your browser when you go to the government website, because otherwise your browser somehow magically stores the other document in its memory. When you click through, it'll, even though you've clicked the link to the updated version, it'll just show you the previous version that it's somehow magically stored. So you do need to refresh the cache or clear the cache. And my advice on how to do that is Google it. That's highly technical IT advice for you, Dave, just for you, mate. But yeah, you do need to clear your cache. And that one got me when last week I got an email from the government telling me the plans have been updated. I went on that website, clicked through and went, oh, the turkeys haven't updated it. So I sent them back an email, and then I got an email back going, yeah, no, you haven't refreshed your cache, have you? So I've actually asked them to put a note at the top of that page inviting people to refresh the cache or clear the cache, whatever the term is, before.
But can you explain what I haven't even heard of that? Clear the what?
Cache.
Cache.
C-A-C-H-E. So if you Google that, mate, basically it's, I don't know, I'm not right.
If I can butt in here, basically your computer stores a sort of a version of documents or web pages, and we'll go back to that version when you go to a page. And it may not necessarily be the most up to date. So the best way to do it is to close down the page, maybe delete your history in your browser and go in again. And that way you'll be looking at the most recent version, generally speaking.
I think the hesitation, we're yet to, we've opened the climbing gym, but we're yet to do outdoor activities, and we're just hesitant to develop all these procedures if they're going to change again. So that's what, you think we're pretty solid now with this?
Yeah, Dave, my take is there'll be a bit of tinkering, but again, what do I know? There's a few little changes, and they're generally tinkering at the edges. But like this one, the events thing is actually a clarification because they realised that the wording in the roadmap is actually contradictory to what's in the plan, and they didn't want to get inundated with people actually saying, I've got an event with over 500 people. How do I, and I've got to get permission. If you don't have an industry plan, you've got to get permission from your local public health unit. And they just didn't want, I think the public health unit's getting inundated with requests for approval for events that's being run under an industry plan, which is already approved by the Chief Health Officer. So the industry plan overrides the generic stuff. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, so what they're trying to say, basically, I think there's tinkering. The big thing, and Danny's just asked this question, or Danny or Benoni, I'm not sure, regarding the 100 people. Yeah, that's still in place. That the restriction to groups of 100 people in the outdoor ed plan is still in place. And that, as I think I spoke about last week, I see that as the trade-off for getting the relaxation on the 4 square metres for children. So we haven't been able to get that relaxed, and but my thinking on that one is that we'll, I think in a month or 6 weeks, or you know, in a little while, once if things are still going well in the outdoor ed space and in Queensland generally, I think we'll have an opportunity to go back and ask for relaxation on that group size point. But as it is now, yes, the group size will stay at 100 maximum per group. You can have multiple groups in a venue if you can minimise interactions between groups. But yeah.
That was one of the other questions some staff raised, was this in active play, the 4 square rule goes out. Can that include adults, or is it just allowed for students?
No, that's everyone, Dave. So they talk about the field of play. And once you're on the field of play, full contact's allowed. That's the same for contact sports. They can, like rugby union is my favourite example. You can pack scrums, you can have line outs, you can tackle people. they're full contact on the field of play, and then once you step over that line, it's back to the 4 square metres and everything else. So that's the way that they're trying to allow people, but that applies to adults and children. It applies to everyone. So
within an outdoor rec environment with a session, be it climbing, surfing, if in the water, if they do cross paths, where that's legitimate activity.
Yep, that's right. It still says, like, where possible, minimise contact, but it's okay. Like in terms of delivering the activity, yep, you can have contact, even to the points of things like the trust balls. You can do that now because that's on the field of play. You know, it's also, I think we have to remember, this is if we think all our clients are comfortable doing it in the current environment. That's the other bit, because if you don't need to do it, I guess that's the point you need to consider, and also whether your staff are comfortable delivering it. So I still think there's space to err on the side of caution for some things, but other ones where it's going to make it so much easier for you to deliver, that's great, as long as everyone's comfortable with what's going on. I actually had a phone call last week from a guy who's been delivering, he runs tandem skydiving, and he said, mate, how do I do 1.5 metres physical distancing? And I just went, don't think you can. But now he can say the field of play is, once you're strapped in, you're on the field of play. You know, you jump out of the airplane. I don't know how you go sitting in the airplane strapped in together for half an hour, however long it takes to get up to that height when you want to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. But I think that's going to make things a lot easier for a lot of operators. So the field of play bit is a key bit. It's a sporting term, but we can adapt that. We're pretty good at adapting sporting terms, so we can adapt that to our environments. So yeah, but it's a good question as far as the adults and children, or groups of adults alone. It all works. So yep. Any others on the world of industry plans? I might just move on then a little bit about the events. So last week, the QTIC, which is Queensland Tourism Industry Council, they put together this industry framework for COVID-safe events. It's effectively an industry plan. I actually think our industry plans should have been called industry frameworks, but the government had the term industry plan because really it's a framework for you guys to develop your own plans. But anyway, so this one is actually called an industry framework for events. The important thing about it is we've had, this is the clarification that's going into the outdoor recreation industry plan, is that the events override this framework, because this is really for things where they're slipping through the cracks. So they've said now since then that if an organisation, including sport and recreation, is complying with an approved COVID-safe plan like ours, the active recreation plan, then you don't need additional approval, which is outlined in this framework. So in this one, it goes on the number of people at each event. If it's under 500, you fill out a checklist. If it's between 500 and 10,000, you've got to get approval from your public health unit. And if it's over 10,000, you actually got to go back to the chief health officer for approval for that event. What they've said now is if you're operating under an approved industry plan like ours, then you can have an event of whatever size without going back for extra approval. So that would be great for guides and scouts if they're having a jamboree. If they're comfortable having a jamboree with thousands of people, they can do that without going to their local, they don't have to go to their local public health unit to get approval because they're operating under the industry plan. But you do also have to comply with, it says review and consider the key public health principles and event-specific public health strategies. So I've got very subtle red arrows there, and that's just from the index of the industry framework. So there's key public health principles, which are pretty much things that are in our plan anyway. So they talk about best practice government arrangements, communicating expectations, the physical distancing stuff, which is about site capacities as well, and then public health measures, screening, contact tracing, cleaning and hand sanitisation and hand washing facilities, and then first aid and health services plan. So there's nothing in there that's going to stop any event organisers, but we need to acknowledge there are a lot of event organisers across the outdoor sector. So it goes from the commercial event organisers through to scouts and guides, trail running, horse riding, orienteering, mountain bike clubs, and other businesses who might just run an event from here and now and then. So if you're operating under the industry plan, that's what you need to operate under still, but you apply some of these principles as well. So the event-specific public health strategies, I haven't listed all of them. I just chopped a bit of the index out of that document, but it's worth having a look at. There's some really good information in there. They've done a really good job of it, I think. It was QTIC, Griffith Uni, and I think, I don't know, this Mass Gathering Institute or something, and they've done a good job of it. So yeah, it is an important piece. What I've been looking at is organising a session, trying to organise a session with QTIC and potentially someone from a rep from government to explain to anyone who organises an outdoor event how this document, the principles in that, can interact with our industry plan. So if anyone's interested in that, please let me know. And obviously, like I say, it's I think the relevance for all of the non-profit organisations as much as the businesses, the commercial organisers of events. I'd really like to see, if we're going to get it happening, get as many people as possible in on that event, and I'll line it up and we'll work out a time to do that, because I just want to make sure that if we're running an event, it's being run appropriately, but also in accordance with the legal requirements that these things are, because all of these things are actually legal requirements. I showed last week some of the websites that have the directions from the Chief Health Officer. So I think there's value in just having an extra session just for event organisers. So we'll get some more information together about that and put something out, probably as a separate bulletin, which people have to register for or whatever, and we'll get that happening. So we'll publicise that, but I just wanted to flag it. I just saw Rhonda put in there, that'd be great. So yeah, Rhonda, I think we'll get some more information out about that in the next little while. I've already contacted QTIC about it and they're quite keen. I think this clarification that we've had this week will actually make things simpler. So it mightn't have to be a massive session, but I think we need to make sure we get it right. So any questions on events or other things? Nope. Just to recap, gone through all that fun and games. I think I'm glad my presentations come good at the end and you can actually see the screen. We've got 5 minutes and I'm happy to open the floor to anyone who wants to have a chat about any other topics or even a recap on any of these things that we've ripped through quickly. Any comments? One thing I would like to ask, as people are getting back, particularly in the outdoor ed space, but also in the outdoor rec space, as you're holding events or having programs, it'd be really good to get some stories of how it's going under the industry plan, what you're seeing, and any feedback on the plans as you're putting them into practice would be really useful for me, but also to that sport and rec email address. There's really value in, you guys are basically the guinea pigs out there as far as we've written these plans with input from a lot of people in the industry, but I'd really appreciate any feedback. If there's things in there you think haven't been considered or haven't been thought all the way through, please let us know. That's probably a key part. And it's not just let me know, but let Sport and Rec know too, because they can, again, not that we want to encourage changes of these plans because everyone wants to actually do their plans that run out of it. But if there's things that aren't working, we need to know about it so we can address it. And just looking here, Tanya's just asked a question, any research or information about overexposure of disinfectant or sanitizer? There is some stuff about PPE use in some of the Safe Work Australia stuff, Tanya, which is linked in the industry plan about PPE to use. I'm not sure about overexposure of disinfectant. I know Donald Trump had a problem with that, but I don't know about other things on that as far as research there. But yeah, it certainly is one of those things we need to take into account. Mark's also said there we can help promote any events on What's On, and we might even go through some of the people who've posted events on What's On and tap them on the shoulder and see if they're interested in that that session. But yeah, that's a portal that we can easily promote any of your events. I just saw from Danny and Benoni, if anyone's run a camp under the approved industry plan, are they willing to share how they've gone? Yeah, I'm happy to, if you guys want to talk about that. Or Tanya, do you want to have a quick chat about how you ran yours?
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, ours is, I mean, it was 13 people, so it was very small. And we could meet all the distancing. I think we've worked out if we kind of get close to 30 is our point when everything becomes much more complex, but with the spacing with the dining room and activities, the 13, now we ran that just after the change to the field of play requirements. I think if we had to try and run it before that, it was going to be interesting, but yeah, that was good. And on another side, my son was a participant with Blue Peter, with the sailing camp, and had a great time. And I think there was probably about 20 of them there. And that seemed to run quite well too. So I don't know, I'm only reflecting on those small groups that are sort of under 20, but so far have gone well. What I was probably surprised about, which I probably shouldn't be, is how much air drying hand sanitizer we're actually using. So that's why I was asking about the overexposure, because I'm like, gosh, when you actually spray down things, it's amazing how much you have to use. And I was just, you know, even with wearing gloves and stuff, I was wondering what that's like for staff long term. But in terms of running the activities, it was pretty good.
Cool. Thanks, Tanya. And maybe that's something we need to keep an eye on too across the industry, as far as, you know, if people are reporting issues with, you know, exposure to that, then it's worth following up. It might even be worth asking the question higher up the chain if there's broader research into those sort of things. Yeah, I probably shouldn't have made light about it, about Mr. Trump, but sometimes I can't help it, particularly when it comes to that gentleman. Good to see Matthew's just flagged that Nature Freedom's going to be running events again starting in end of August. That's great to hear, Matthew. Well done. Rhonda's just flagged there's other viruses out there as well. Just more good news. It keeps on coming. Yeah, and oh, I hope your mother's recovering, Rhonda. Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, I think they'd say that they're expecting the flu season this year to be not as bad because everyone is doing the physical distancing, which is an interesting byproduct. But yeah, thank you for everyone who's joined us today. It's really been good to see you all, a good session. Thanks to Dot particularly for talking about her research project. And again, there's more info on that on our website, but also on the website that we've shared. So yeah, thanks very much, everyone. If you've got any other questions or potential topics you'd like to speak about next week, please zip us through an email or just pick up the phone. Always happy to have a chat. So as I said at the start, happy to start on time, finish on time, and it's on time. So thanks very much, and we'll see you next time.